We are at lunch with a legend, the legendary Leigh Steinberg here at Morton's Steakhouse in Santa Ana. Max and Marcellus, Mark Willard sitting in for Marcellus Wiley. You know, super agent, right? You get introduced as one of two ways, I imagine, Lee. Either super agent Leigh Steinberg or super agent Leigh Steinberg, upon whom Jerry Maguire was based, right? How do you feel? Is that you get tired of that after a while?
Well, the third way is take your outrageous demands and get the heck out of my office. So, you know, I went to law school, but those people who sit and worry about whether they're called sports attorneys or sports agents, as long as they're doing the work, it's fine, Max.
And but incidentally, some bad news out of Wall Street today. I just heard you talking. Lee was addressing the crowd here live at Morton's Steakhouse in Santa Ana, talking about how it's not really labor versus management that's the issue in sports. It's the NFL versus Major League Baseball, the NBA, HBO, all the various different entertainment choices. Here we are in an economy now. Traditionally, entertainments thrive during bad economic times. People want distraction. The Dow Jones down nearly 400 points so far today. I was just informed. How does that affect as an agent? What your job?
Not very much. The primary revenue source for professional sports, and certainly for the NFL, is television. And those economics are driven by the fact that you have so many networks that want to use football, baseball, basketball to show their promos for their Monday through Friday programming and capture that huge male demographic. Now, it doesn't really matter what ad revenue they get. The play is to build the value of the network. So that's still thriving and getting better. When I started, Max, each team in the NFL made $2 million as their share of the national television contract. Next contract, that went to $17 million. Then we got Fox into the mix. It went to $45 million. The next contract was $73 million. The contract after that, $120 million. And at the same time, franchise values that in 1976 for for Tampa and Seattle were $16.5 million. When Carolina and Jacksonville come into the league, $130 million. Houston comes into the league in the year 2000, $600 million. And now every team averages $1 billion.
$1 billion a team.
So the franchise values are massive, the TV revenue is massive, and there are more interesting, clever ways to drive revenue, whether it's fantasy sports, whether it's naming rights. So the good old days are right now for sports.
Well, you talk about ESPN, and you know, it's a business model that cable networks have. How can they just want football to say, hey, watch us? If you're getting $4 a cable box, and there are 100 million cable boxes in the country, and you're using the leverage of that mail demo to make sure everyone pays that $4 instead of it showing up as a premium, that's $400 million a month times 12. It's $5 billion before you sell a commercial. It's $5 billion, and the NFL is driving it.
Now remember that the networks always complain about the awful rights fees they pay. When the ABC Monday Night Football contract came up last time, ESPN bid double what the price had been before and took the franchise over. So we're in the midst of massive economic explosion in a variety of different ways, and it's only going to get better. You got bigger stadiums with more revenue opportunities. You have such interesting new ways to experience sports, whether it's having a television screen and running your rotisserie stats down one end, and if you're watching a college football game, you can have the other alums from the school that are your friends going back and forth with you. They're taking technology and taking the internet, mobile phones, video games, every form of content supply is being creatively done, and we're involved in a lot of those projects.
That economic boom you're talking about, you know, so much of sports has ended up in the courts this year. As a lawyer, what is your take on that, and how much does that economic boom have to do with that?
Well, I think I said on this station about a year and a half ago that the NFL CBA would never get done until there was imminent disaster, until the apocalypse was right around the corner. And no one does anything in football till the very last second. I had the first-round draft pick of the New York Giants, who's was named Gordon King some years ago. So I called up George Young, who was the GM, and I said, you know, it's April. We can do the first signing. We can set the trend. We don't have to wait for the market. We can do it right now. And he said, Lee, call me back in late July, and hung up the phone. I mean,
well, that makes sense from his point of view, right? Why would he negotiate against himself? Find out what the guy's really worth on the market.
Point being that we do everything at the end. And right now, we're in the wild, wild west, the Oklahoma land rush. It's like a form and function of speed dating, because you have some 400 unrestricted free agents who normally would have been signed back in March or April. They're all out there scrambling around like musical chairs to try to find homes. In addition, you have the undrafted players who would have been signed within 2 weeks after the draft. It's another 600 players. Now you have the players that would have been released on June 1st for cap differential, those vets. That's another couple hundred players. And you have 300 draft picks. Meanwhile, training camp's going on. So those teams that are foresightful enough to look and understand what their needs were ahead of time are in good shape. The teams that are in bad shape in the NFL have new coaches, new systems, or are dependent on having a critical free agent or a Cam Newton come in and play a role this year. They won't get the signings done in time to get the players enough time in training camp to play any role. So watch for a very odd beginning to this NFL season, because you'll have franchises like the Patriots, Eagles, Colts, Packers, who will start very fast, and you'll have other teams like on the Oklahoma land rush that just won't get off the line.
Okay, now, and as Mark pointed out earlier in the show, I don't remember if it was on mic or off mic, you have all these free agents who are going to have to sign one-year deals, and some of this, and there'll be higher activity than normal in the next free agency period as a result, potentially. Okay, football in Los Angeles, Lee. You have been intimately involved in this entire process. Quickly, as we go to break, and then coming up, I want you to elaborate. Where do we stand right now? How close are we?
Well, as the former chairman of Save the Rams, and I did such a great job, they've been in St. Louis for all these years.
You warned everyone at the time.
I said we would not get football back in Southern California for 20 years.
And also, if the Rams left, the Raiders were going to leave,
That's
and you were right both.
Yeah, how did you know that?
Because the dynamic was such that we weren't valuing our teams. We didn't understand it would cost our stadium plan to build a sports town over at Anaheim Stadium and keep the Rams was for the unbelievably expensive total of $160 million. The new stadium for the Jets and Giants cost $2 billion. Dallas' stadium cost $1 billion. I knew that whatever economics would be crazy, but football is coming back to Los Angeles.
It is,
it
definitively.
Is. I'll tell you this.
Coming up, Leigh Steinberg will tell you why. Max and Marcellus, Mark Willard sitting in for Marcellus Wiley. This is Lunch with the Legend. The legend is the great super agent Leigh Steinberg. We're at Morton's The Steakhouse in Santa Ana, 710 ESPN. Is more imminent than ever in LA. Why Leigh Steinberg proclaimed before the commercial break, football is coming to LA. But first, Lee, I must ask you. I know you took a little hiatus from representing players. Now you're getting back into it. Who was your favorite player that you ever represented? You have to have a favorite. Come on.
Now that's like asking someone who their favorite child is.
I'll tell you who my favorite kid is. I got 2 kids. I got a favorite. What do you want me to tell you? Yes.
And one day when he's on a psychiatrist's couch, the one that's not she is on a psychiatrist.
That's her problem.
Daddy never loved me.
That's right. I loved her. I just love the other one more. What's wrong? Who did you love the most?
Daddy Max never loved me.
Who did you love the most?
I have to say I went through 23 years with Warren Moon, who went to Hamilton High School and then to West LA College and then to the University of Washington and then to Edmonton for 6 years and then played 17 years. And I gave his presenting speech back at the Hall of Fame. And I mean, we're really close, but, you know.
Well, listen, all I'm going to say is Marcellus Wiley will be on the sports shrink couch after you just said that publicly, Leigh Steinberg. Marcellus, isn't that right? Marcellus, isn't that right?
Well, no.
Set him up.
Now.
I set him up, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, you did. Well, Max made sure that my legendary status is now reverted to being a legend in my own mind.
No, you got Marcellus Wiley when he was all finished. $16 million. I mean, he's got to worship at the altar of Leigh Steinberg. Let's face it. He had nothing left. You got him $16 million.
Is that all?
Yeah, $16 million.
Well, it was a few years ago.
In those days, that was a lot of money, Leigh. Yeah.
I see. Marcellus was as amazing a role model as you will ever find. He was as amazing a communicator as you'll ever find, and he was devastating off the edge. And he went to Columbia.
He did go to Columbia. I remember him there.
He grew up in Los Angeles, went to Columbia. I mean, if you had the quintessential model client for me, it'd be Marcellus Wiley. You know, personality, big as all outdoors, and that's our whole role modeling. But Marcellus made a real impact in the inner city in different places. Simply the fact he went to an Ivy League school and played football and came out of inner city LA, but it was an amazing experience, and he'll be a friend of mine for life.
Marcellus, does that make it all better?
Yeah, that's how you clear it up. That's why he was
Right. Otherwise, he'd have just been an agent. You want to see super agent at work? That's a super agent. Marcellus, what was it like having Leigh as a representative? I know you had him for a brief time, but he swindled a team out of $16 million for you. You got to really feel good about him, don't you? All right, good.
Obviously, reputation preceded him. Everyone knew how great an agent he was. He represented one of my former teammates, Bruce Smith. And just hearing all the great stories of, it's not just about going out there and getting that big pay period. It's also just a guy who can understand what you were going through, different parts of your career, other things to respect. And I was coming from a former agent, then I was in a bad situation, and Leigh came and salvaged it. So,
Marcellus, what did Bruce Smith, blah, 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 what did Bruce Smith tell you about Leigh Steinberg that made you say, other than knowing the reps, because there are other enormous agents with big reputations, what did Bruce Smith tell you that made you say, I got to go check Leigh Steinberg out?
Well, other than obviously the first conversation is he will get you paid. And no further than that, saying that he will be accessible and he'll listen to you in your particular situation. And I think that's tremendous because you look at it nowadays, a lot of agents have their players and they keep their agency top heavy where they take care of the Tom Brady's and Peyton Manning, but the other guys who weren't the star players of their team or franchise quarterbacks still need that attention.
And Leigh, we saw that. Get
Reputation of having those great quarterbacks on his roster, the top overall picks, but also guys who still were great players who needed some attention.
Leigh, we saw that in Jerry Maguire. One of the themes was that Tom Cruise's Jerry Maguire was disgruntled because there wasn't a personal touch. There was this great cynicism, and he was like a true believer. Was that element based on you? Were you a true believer? What's your philosophy in terms of this sort of thing?
Well, Cameron Crowe followed me around for 3 years to pick up background and atmosphere for Jerry Maguire. When I went to the '93 NFL draft where I had Drew Bledsoe as the first pick, he came. When we went to the league meetings out in Palm Desert, I had a free agent named Tim McDonald. And Cameron went up into Tim's room and said, what are you looking for with all these teams? What's Leigh trying to show you? And he said, well, I'm looking for a team to show me some respect. I'm looking for a team that, and Lou Dobbs' money line was on in the background. He said, gestured toward the screen and said, I'm looking for a team to show me some economic security. I'm looking for a team to show me some love. And Cameron went off and wrote the line, show me the money, which I've only heard maybe 92 million times.
But I mean, how much of it, because Marcellus just points out the thing that Bruce Smith told him about you was that aside from the fact that it'll get you paid, it starts there with the money, obviously, but he'll also give you personal attention in a way, I mean, parenthetically, what he's saying is in a way that you're not used to, in a way that other agents don't. And we saw that was one of the themes in the movie. Can you talk about that philosophy?
Well, the key really is to listen and ask the right questions and understand what someone's value system is, how they rank short-term economic gain, long-term economic security, family, geographical location, football considerations like being a starter, being on a winning team, playing in a certain system. Every person, if they're introspective enough, will identify their own value and priority system in a way where if you listen, because we don't share as easily as men, as women do, and you need to peel back the layers of the onion and be quiet and allow an athlete to reveal his deepest hopes and dreams and his greatest fears and anxieties. And once you can get to that emotional center, Max, then you can always understand what's in his best interest. So using the Tim McDonald...
Interesting. You're the guy who turned Marcellus into a woman. I was wondering how the hell that happened. All right. Very sensitive for a football player. Yes, I'm sorry, Lee. Yes.
I noticed that you're saying that while he's injured and on hiatus.
You're damn right I am.
Sitting with
Sitting at home.
You're damn right. You're damn right. That's right.
On the screen. But the point is that it's holistically to take the value system of an athlete and then figure out how to use the off seasons to develop second career, how to set up charitable and community programs that will enable him to repay those communities that help shape him, how to bond him back into the high school community, the collegiate community, the professional community, setting up foundations. Marcellus will have ample opportunity to talk about his, but we did programs like Work Done, Homes for the Holidays, where we took money, made the down payment for single women to move into the first home that they would ever own, and then had Home Depot outfit the home. Or Derek
Oprah Winfrey style.
Or Derek, this was way before Oprah.
Wow, you're the original Oprah Winfrey.
This is from back in the 70s. Down in San Diego, we did a program called Kicks for Critters with Rolf Manershka, where he gave money to the Fund for Endangered Species every time he kicked a field goal. And we would get the leading business people in the city, the leading community leaders, all to sit on that board behind an athlete's personal legacy and vision. So I would ask them, how do you want to change the world? How do you want this to be a different place because you were here? Can you utilize that high athletic profile to trigger imitative behavior? So when I had Lennox Lewis, the heavyweight boxing champ, cut a PSA that said, "Real men don't hit women," it could do more to change behavior, especially in rebellious adolescents, than 1,000 authority figures ever could. You know, people tune out messages. They tune out commercial messages, authority figures, but an athlete can permeate the perceptual screen that we put up against those messages and deliver something powerful. When I had Oscar De La Hoya do a PSA that said, prejudice is foul play, or Steve Young do prejudice is foul play. And we're going to do the same thing with the environment.
Lee, here's what I want to know before we leave the Jerry Maguire subject. Was there a real-life Bob Sugar, and was there a real-life Rod Tidwell? And don't be afraid to say if Marcellus was Rod Tidwell.
It was Marcellus was just getting out of college. I mean, this research was done in 93, 94, 95. I think that Cuba Gooding, who I took down to the Super Bowl and made him pretend that he was a wide receiver for a whole week to put him in role, was probably an amalgam between what he saw with Tim McDonald, what he saw with Warren Moon, but it was the fact that these are relationships different than others. They're based on personal caring and feeling. It's why I got so active in the concussion issue, because I couldn't, in good conscience, watch athletes suffer this type of injury and not understand what the causality was and the rest. But Jerry Maguire was a interesting project. I would tell Cameron stories, and he would do what he did with them in the script. And we were together for 3 years. He followed me wherever I was. He sat in my office. I had to work with the actors. I'll tell you, the originally Jerry Maguire was going to be Tom Hanks, but Tom Hanks had another movie to do, and the Dorothy character was going to be Winona Ryder, but she had something to do, so they cast this ingenue no one had ever heard of, which was Renee Zellweger, and she's had a little bit of success. And after that one, I did Any Given Sunday, where I worked with Oliver Stone and had the fun of putting Al Pacino into role, and took Oliver down here to big parties, had him meet players, took him through that world. And Cameron Diaz was one of my assignments. That was a tough one. I was married then. So I used to have to come back and say, well, where were you so late tonight, Leigh? Oh, I was assiduously working to benefit our family. You know, I was spending hours with Cameron Diaz explaining what it would be like to be a woman negotiating with someone like me.
Okay, Leigh Steinberg. Yes, the inspiration for Jerry Maguire. Super agent Leigh Steinberg. Once Marcellus Wiley's representative. Marcellus Wiley, who can't stop talking. Marcellus, will you please shut up and let other people talk on this show for just 1 second?
I'm trying to respect you guys.
Now coming up, Marcellus Wiley and Mark Willard and I will grill Leigh Steinberg as to why he states definitively the NFL is coming to Los Angeles. Will it be here next year? Will it be the Chargers? How does he know it's coming? Max and Marcellus, 710 ESPN.
Now listen, we're at lunch with the legend Leigh Steinberg, super agent, inspiration for Jerry Maguire. And apparently, we involved in the making of Any Given Sunday, which I felt was a highly underrated film. How do you like that?
For the love of the game.
Love of the game, okay. Now,
Kevin Costner.
now, trying to name all the good ones. Just calm down. Now, here's the thing. We're at lunch with the legend in Santa Ana, Morton's The Steakhouse. Leigh Steinberg's here, and he told us about 15 minutes ago, 20 minutes ago, NFL is coming to Los Angeles. How do you know that, Leigh?
I know it because I was chairman of Save the Rams. I said if the Rams left, the Raiders would leave. We wouldn't get a team for 20 years. We have lacked, as a region, all the necessary components to get a team. We don't have a unified political leadership. We have a tax-phobic public. We don't have a supportive press. We have nothing that the Clevelands and Houstons and other cities that got back teams have. Paul Tagliabue killed himself to bring a team here. They told LA, we will build the stadium. We'll hand the bill over. LA had to do virtually nothing except show minor enthusiasm to get that, and we blew that after we'd blown the fact that LA was offered the chance in 2000, the franchise that went to Cleveland, went to Houston. This will work because AEG built Staples, they built Home Depot, they own Union Pacific Railroads, they own the Regal Theaters. They know how to build a state-of-the-art, successful project. That's number one. So they're the right people because they know how to do this and they've done it successfully. Number two, this project has economic benefits for the entire city of LA and the Southland. It will refurbish the convention center. Part of the problem with the economics of building a stadium is you spend $1 billion, 10 home days. That's not a very efficient use of land, but this will be part of the new LA corridor. It will provide jobs. It will be good for the economy. It will allow extra conventions to come here that wouldn't come here before. They have done a superb political job of getting every ethnic group in Los Angeles, political group, celebrity, all behind it. So they've done the footwork. And the LA City Council is also behind this because they know Los Angeles has major economic problems. So this process will work. I feel bad for Ed Roski and John Semkin and Majestic Realty because their program also will work. But this one has so much, and we should laud them for going ahead and being involved. But this project has political support, it's got public support.
Talk about the City of Industry plan. That just wasn't as sexy, let's face it, as AEG building next to the Staples
But
Center.
you may still see it built at some point, and those are good people who put their money and reputation on the line, and I laud them. But AEG with Phil Anschutz and Tim Liawecki know how to do this. They've got the political support. We will see that stadium built, and we will get a team.
What about this?
We may get two.
I see, it sounds like we will, it looks like the Chargers will be here next year anyway at the Coliseum. The next year, okay, so it passed unanimously in the council today. Now, in the committee, it goes now before the council. Assuming it passes, it just needs a simple majority. Another step towards getting a team here, towards breaking ground. But then there's a year of environmental study, right? We have to study the impact on the environment. And I like that. I like the fact that that it just doesn't get rubber stamped. But I also understand the political intricacies. It's Byzantine, right? How many different groups can now come forward and say, and attach problems to this thing? What makes you so confident over the next year, without just rubber stamping the environmental issue, that will actually pass muster?
Because I think that people finally understand that Los Angeles does not have a divine right to a team. I said in '94 we wouldn't get a team back. People said, oh, we're the second largest market. They'll put a team back here. Yeah, just kidding. You know, that was 1994. It's now 2011. If I do my math right, a whole generation has grown up without LA football. You can say whatever you want about the fact we get more games on TV now and all the rest of it, but nothing is as attractive as watching Vince Ferragamo and Mike Lansford and Eric Dickerson play for the LA Rams. Watching a local team, they will overcome all those obstacles. This process has got momentum and power behind it. It's different. I've spent 40 years around 32 NFL owners. I know they want this, and football will be back in Los Angeles. The truth of the matter is that in LA, in Southern California, you will sell the luxury boxes first. You will sell the most expensive seats first. You've got naming rights. Imagine all of us who sit in traffic on either the 110 or the 10 or the one of those things downtown that drive you to complete distraction, know what those naming rights are worth. Oh my God. Jerry Jones once told me, he said, the only franchise I would ever trade the Dallas Cowboys for, and I won't do it, is a Los Angeles franchise, because it's potentially the most profitable franchise in the world. We got 14 million people in these 4 counties and more that live within driving distance. The TV rights, the naming rights, it's a major economic boom. So get ready for some football.
Yeah.
Is the environmental impact report. You're extremely qualified to talk about this with the Sporting Green Alliance that you set up. Explain to people what that is. And Tim Liawecki has said this would be the most environmentally friendly stadium ever. Do you agree with that? What goes into all of that?
Well, what happened is I became concerned that our species was in denial about the reality of climate change.
Okay, wait a minute. I want to hear what you did about it, and so do the people. And therefore, this is the time that we break. You see, this is called a tease, ladies and gentlemen. You see what I mean? Just let them get right into it right away. You're dying to know what he says.
The waves in the oceans are coming up on Southern California.
That's
and
right.
There's a huge tsunami.
The sea levels are rising.
To get here.
And coming up, Leigh Steinberg will tell you why he got involved, what the problems are, what the solutions are.
And how I divided the Red Sea.
That's right. Part of the waters. At Morton's Steakhouse in Santa Ana, 710 ESPN.
Okay, so we're at lunch with the legend, with the great Leigh Steinberg, super agent Leigh Steinberg, Max and Marcellus, Mark Willard sitting in for Marcellus Wiley at Morton's, the Steakhouse in Santa Ana. We have one more segment here, Leigh, with you. So you're going to have to rush through the environmental issues that football fans just don't care about, let's face it, so we can get to
dishing. They better
dishing.
care about it or they're not going to be football in
That's
LA.
right. Well, it'll be water polo. Now, here's the thing. Once we get through this, we can start dishing on Frank McCourt. Ooh, is Leigh Steinberg going in on Frank McCourt? You got to hear this. So quickly, a few words about your work with the environment.
So I became convinced that we were not appropriately facing the real threat here, and I didn't want to be part of the first generation to ever hand down a degraded quality of life to our kids. And this is real stuff. It's rising oceans, it's shortages of water, it's polluted water and air. So I thought if we aggregate all the best technologies in water, solar, resurfacing, and take them to stadia, arena, and practice facilities at the pro, college, and high school level, we can incorporate them into those stadia and arena designs and practice fields and even golf courses and drop carbon emissions, drop energy costs, and transform them into educational platforms so the billions of fans that come to games can see a waterless urinal or a solar panel for the first time and see how they can incorporate
a cultural change.
They can incorporate those practices in their own life. So we put sports in the forefront. You have Saturday morning cartoon shows with sports heroes fighting for the environment. You have comic books. You green up. And we do that at the Super Bowl. My friend Gabby Giffords brought Janet Napolitano when we were in Phoenix, and she and I, who was governor, is now Homeland Security, and we released an endangered hawk into the wild. So we have a green carpet at the Super Bowl party, not a red carpet, and we label everything. But our species just has to wake up. You know, in the Middle Ages, they said if you said that the Earth was actually round instead of flat, they would burn you at the stake, and we're showing the same type of denial now.
Interesting. Of course, they don't burn any steaks at Morton's, the Steakhouse, Mark Willard, and that's where we are. You can even get it with A1 sauce, unlike Chris Webber couldn't get it with steak sauce. He left the restaurant recently. Come to Morton's. They give it to you however you want it. Leigh Steinberg. Frank McCourt, I know you're very fond of as a lifelong Dodger fan. Please tell us your feelings on Frank McCourt.
You know, I grew up here in Southern California and fell in love with the Angels, but fell in love with the Dodgers first. And Sandy Koufax was my greatest all-time idol, and Maury Wills was also my idol. I loved the Dodgers. It was the concept of going to a Dodger game. We didn't care who was playing. We didn't care who was pitching. We went for the experience at Dodger Stadium. They marketed L.A. like a small town. Okay, they had bobblehead night and triple A night and straight A night.
No-hitter night with Koufax. You might as well throw one. He was going to throw one every year.
That's right. The point is that it was ingrained in our culture with Vince Scully's voice and all the promotions and things they did. And they had a set lineup which you could root for 9 or 10 years, you know, because once the first group left, then it was Baker, Garvey, Say, Lopes, Russell, and then the next group came, and the first chink in the armor was when they traded Mike Piazza, when Fox had bought the team, because they never did things like that with the Dodgers. They kept these players forever. Frank McCourt never had the financial wherewithal to buy the team in the first place. We had viable owners like Peter Ubroth, who would have fit perfectly into our thing. So you take a Boston parking lot guy who doesn't have enough money. Now he comes out here and he uses the team as a piggy bank.
Plus, he's from Boston. Right away, it puts him, you know, terrible things come out of Boston.
But the point is,
Boston. Yes.
They destroyed very methodically.
Uses the team like a piggy bank, including raiding which fund?
Well, my understanding is allegedly, for all your lawyers, Frank, that money was actually used out of the cancer fund to pay some expenses.
Well, listen, you know, cancer is one thing, but he needs 11 houses. You know, some people have to have cancer because he needs another 14 houses. What's the big deal?
They have destroyed. First of all, you don't feel safe at the stadium anymore, and if you do feel safe, it's because they've got 10 battalions of LAPD there.
In other words, even that was the incorrect response. It's not just that he was cheap or he was over leveraged or he allegedly took money out of a cancer thing to pay for expenses. It's that even when and they laid off security, even when they bring security back, they do that the wrong way, heavy-handed, like you're in a police state instead. It's bad judgment across the board, in your opinion.
He needs to go. Go back to Boston.
Yeah. Go back to Boston, Frank McCourt.
Give us our Dodgers back, the way we like them. You know, a set lineup of classy players and a great place to go. You know,
if you're representing Matt Kemp or whoever, and there's an owner like Frank McCourt, and the guy wants to play in LA, how do you reconcile that?
The key to winning in sports is the quality of the organization. It starts at the top. It starts with an owner, with a long-term plan, with security, stability, and then goes through the manager or coach, same concept.
You see that with the Angels, top to bottom, a first-rate organization.
I love the Dodgers. I bleed Dodger blue, but I will tell you, if I had a client, it's not going to get any better anytime soon. It's absurd for him to be in bankruptcy court. You know, that's and holding on to the team. That's like the kid who kills his parents and goes to court and says, "I need mercy because I'm an orphan." This is simply not the right owner for Los Angeles, and it's not going to get any better. They have no money. Sometimes I watch that lineup and it's like, who? You can't tell the players with or without a scorecard.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the great Leigh Steinberg, ladies and gentlemen. I agree. The organization, the fish rots from the head down, or it can be excellent from the head down. Leigh Steinberg, super agent, runs a top-notch organization, and he knows the difference. Angels good, Dodgers bad, even though we want the Dodgers to be good. Leigh, it's been edifying, entertaining, etc. Thank you for your involvement in the various projects of which you spoke, including bringing football to Los Angeles, trying to keep it here in the first place, etc. Appreciate you being so frank about Frank McCourt and for joining us today here at Morton's The Steakhouse. The great Leigh Steinberg, ladies and gentlemen. Round of applause. A legend in the business. This is truly lunch with a legend. And I would like to thank Morton's The Steakhouse. Of course, everyone enjoy their lunch? Yeah. Damn right you did. AT&T, the real Yellow Pages, Comerica Bank, Farmers, Just Tires, Acura, and Smart and Final, and most of all, the great Leigh Steinberg, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Leigh.
Thanks, Leigh. Max and Marcellus, Mark Willard sitting in for Marcellus Wiley, 710 ESPN. Thanks, Leigh. And on behalf of 710 ESPN, would like to present Leigh Steinberg with this token of our esteem. It's a triangle. Bet you don't have any of those, Leigh. Thank you.
Thanks, and thanks. Well,
Go ahead. Is this on? Yeah.
I want to thank ESPN for hosting this luncheon. Thank Morton's for the great job they always do. I used to bring players to Morton's to recruit them, and as long as my credit card worked. And but anyway, thank you all for coming out today, and thanks so much to the whole ESPN crew, Max and Mark and Marcellus, who's on injured reserve. And it's a great station. It represents LA well. It's interesting. It doesn't have loud screeching voices on it. And thanks y'all for coming out. And I want to recognize that I brought my partner Scott Bogdan with me, and my We brought the whole crew. I brought my trainer, Nicole Glattman. I brought my great and good friend, Cynthia Dietrich. I brought Tom Van Voorst, my great friend. I brought Brad Jensen. I mean, we brought out, everyone today. And thank you all for coming. And Adam.